She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him right now." Her voice was sharp, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. But the badge hanging from the so-called officer's chest looked cheap. Almost plastic. I stood frozen on my porch, watching two men in fake uniforms shove my wife back against our car. One of them had the nerve to slap her when she refused to hand over her ID. My fists clenched. But I stayed still. They thought I was just another black man who would bow down. They didn't know who I really was. Karen, standing behind them with her arms crossed, smiled like she was the queen of the street. "This is HOA property," she said loudly, so the neighbors would hear. "You people don't belong here." Her words stung, but I let her keep talking. I noticed the way she slipped a folded paper into my mailbox, some fake HOA eviction notice she printed off the internet. She actually believed she could push us out with her lies. My wife looked at me, her eyes burning with both fear and defiance. I gave her the slightest nod. "Not yet. Not here." Because while Karen and her fake cops thought they had power, they didn't realize I'd seen every move through the hidden cameras on my porch. Every second was being recorded. And once the right time came, those recordings would destroy them. But the slap, the humiliation, the way she laughed at my wife's pain, that would not go unanswered. And the mistake they made tonight was thinking I was defenseless. Karen strutted closer, heels clicking on the pavement, her voice dripping with fake authority. "If you don't leave by tonight, we'll have you arrested for trespassing. You're lucky I even gave you a warning." She waved the fake eviction notice like it was a royal decree. The neighbors peeked out from their blinds, whispering. Some filming on their phones, but none dared to step in. The taller fake cop leaned toward me, hand resting on his belt like he was ready to pull a weapon. "Sir, don't make this harder. Pack your things. HOA rules." His smirk gave away the act. No real officer talks like that. My wife's cheek was red where they struck her. And all I wanted was to break his jaw right then. But timing was everything. I kept my voice calm. "You sure you want to do this? On my land? In front of all these cameras?" I tilted my head toward the porch light above us, glowing faintly. They didn't notice the tiny lens hidden inside. Karen scoffed, arms folded tighter. "What cameras? Don't play smart. You're done here." I warned the last family who tried to stay too. They ended up selling for cheap. Her eyes narrowed with satisfaction, like she'd already won. Inside, I felt the soldier in me stirring, the men they didn't know existed. But I still held back. Because if there's one thing the Navy taught me, it's patience. Let your enemy overplay their hand. And Karen, she was about to. That's when the shorter fake cop grabbed my wife's wrist again, twisting it hard enough to make her gasp. The sound cut through me like a blade. My jaw tightened. My patience was running out. I stepped forward, slow and steady. And the taller fake cop shoved a hand into my chest. "Back off," he barked, trying to sound official. His badge caught the porch light again, plastic edges, peeling gold paint. A child's toy. That was the moment I knew they weren't just harassing us. They were impersonating real law. That's a federal crime. My wife yanked her wrist free, standing strong even with her cheek burning red. "You don't scare me," she snapped. But the shorter man raised his hand again like he was about to strike her a second time. That was it. The final line. I caught his arm mid-swing, squeezing until he dropped to his knees with a groan. "Touch her again," I said quietly, "and you'll never use this hand again." The crowd of neighbors gasped. Phones came out fully now, cameras flashing, lenses zooming in. Karen shrieked, "Assault! He's attacking an officer. Arrest him." She pointed like she was directing a play, but the taller fake cop hesitated. He looked at his partner writhing in my grip, then at the crowd recording everything. His face went pale. I leaned down, speaking just loud enough for both of them to hear. "You picked the wrong house. The wrong family. And the wrong man." My voice was steady, but inside I could feel years of training boiling up. SEAL instincts. Controlled violence. Precision. Karen stomped closer, phone in hand, yelling. I'm calling the sheriff right now. You'll rot in jail for this. I almost laughed. She had no idea. The real sheriff was on speed dial. And he owed me more than one favor. Karen's shrill voice pierced the air as she jabbed at her phone screen, pretending to summon real backup. Sheriff, hurry. A dangerous man is attacking my officers. Her act was loud, dramatic, made for the neighbors' ears. But she didn't realize her biggest mistake. She actually dialed the real sheriff's office. I loosened my grip just enough for the fake cop to stumble back, clutching his arm, humiliated in front of the entire street. The taller one tried to puff his chest, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. They were exposed, and they knew it. My wife stood beside me now, her voice strong despite the redness on her cheek. Everyone saw what happened. You hit me. You broke into our land. And now you're caught. She pointed at the cameras, not just mine, but the dozen phones recording from across the street. Karen spun toward the crowd, furious. Stop filming. This is private HOA business. She lunged at one neighbor's phone, but the man pulled it back, shaking his head. Ma'am, this is going straight to the police. That's when headlights cut across the street. A cruiser rolled up, red and blue lights bouncing off the houses. The crowd hushed. Karen straightened her shoulders like she was about to be crowned queen. Finally, she hissed, real law enforcement. Now you'll see what happens when you mess with me. The sheriff stepped out, tall, calm, hand resting on his holster. His eyes landed on me first, and I saw the flicker of recognition. He froze for just a second, then gave me the slightest nod. Like an old comrade greeting another. Karen didn't notice. She marched up to him, pointing dramatically at me. Arrest him. He assaulted my officers, he's trespassing, he's. But the sheriff cut her off, his voice firm. Those aren't my officers. The silence that fell over the street was so heavy. You could hear the fake badges rattling as the two men stepped back in panic. Karen froze mid-sentence. Her painted smile twitching as the sheriff's words sank in. What do you mean they're not your officers? She stammered, her voice cracking. The sheriff walked past her without even looking at her face. His boots steady on the pavement. He stopped in front of me, eyes sharp. But there was a glint of something else there, respect. Haven't seen you since Coronado, he muttered under his breath. I gave him a slight nod. My secret was safe, for now. The neighbors murmured, some gasping at the sheriff's quiet recognition. Karen, still clueless, jabbed her finger toward me. He's lying. He doesn't even live here legally. I run this HOA and he. HOA, the sheriff snapped, finally turning to face her. Ma'am, there is no active HOA in this community. It was dissolved 3 years ago. Her face drained of color. The crowd erupted in whispers. She's been faking it all this time. One neighbor muttered. Another said, I knew those fees didn't add up. Phones zoomed in closer. The fake cops started edging toward their car. But the sheriff's deputy, who had arrived quietly behind him, blocked their path. Badges on the hood, he ordered. The plastic clattered against the metal, sounding more pathetic than dangerous. Karen tried to recover, her voice shaking but still laced with arrogance. This is a misunderstanding. I was only trying to protect the neighborhood from people like them. She waved a hand toward my wife and me. That's when the sheriff's tone changed. Low. Deadly serious. Ma'am, you impersonated law enforcement. You assaulted this woman. And you trespassed on private property. That's 3 felonies. And that's before we even get to these clowns you hired. Karen's jaw dropped. For the first time, she realized the hole she'd dug was deeper than she could crawl out of. But I wasn't done watching her fall. The sheriff's words landed like a hammer, but Karen wasn't ready to give up. Her face twisted with panic and rage. And in one last desperate move, she lunged toward my wife, snatching at her phone. Give me that. None of this will hold up. She screamed, clawing like a cornered animal. I stepped between them in an instant, blocking her with my arm. Touch her again, I said, low and steady. And you won't be leaving here standing. The sheriff had seen enough. He grabbed Karen by the wrist, snapping handcuffs around her before she could even process it. The fake cops didn't resist. They dropped their toy badges and begged as deputies shoved them into the cruiser. The crowd roared with cheers, neighbors clapping, shouting things like, "Finally!" and "About time she paid for this." Karen kicked and screamed as she was dragged away. "You don't know who I am. I own this street. You can't do this to me." Her voice cracked, desperate now, no longer powerful. The sheriff turned to me, his eyes steady. "You handled yourself well." Still the same calm under fire. His words carried more weight than anyone else could understand. My wife leaned into me, her hand resting against my chest. The red mark on her cheek still burned my soul. But now it was a badge of strength, because she never broke. As the cruisers pulled away, the sheriff raised his voice for everyone to hear. "This man is the rightful owner of this land. And he's a decorated Navy SEAL veteran. Don't ever forget, he fought for the freedoms we all enjoy. Nobody takes that from him or his family." The crowd erupted again, some saluting, others chanting. Karen's screams faded into the distance, swallowed by the sirens. I wrapped my arm around my wife, feeling her finally relax against me. "It's over," I whispered. But inside, I knew it wasn't just about beating Karen. It was about proving a truth I'd carried my whole life. No matter how loud the liars get, justice has its own voice, and tonight, it roared louder than all of them. And as the porch light camera kept recording, I smiled to myself. Every second of this night would live online by morning. Millions would see what happens when fake power meets real truth.